Hello everyone! Today's learning goal is about using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is a way to solve quadratic equations. It's a formula where you can just plug things in and it will give you the answer for x. The formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that entire thing over 2a. There's a song you can sing to remember the quadratic formula. It's the quadratic formula set to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. It goes, x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm going to sing it one more time. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. When you're using the quadratic formula, a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant when the equation equals 0. The equation must equal 0 before you identify a, b, and c, or the formula does not work. I'm going to say that again. The equation must equal 0 before you identify a, b, and c, or the formula does not work. If the square root of b squared minus 4ac winds up having a negative number under the square root sign, then the answer is no solution. You can't have the square root of a negative number because no number squared would give you a negative. If you wind up trying to find the square root of a negative number, your calculator will give you an error. When you get an error, it's because you tried to find the square root of a negative number, which doesn't exist, and so you should just write no solution. All right, let's look at an example. For your first example, we have x squared minus 6x plus 5. A is the number in front of x squared, so a in this case is 1, because there's a secret 1 in front of x squared. B is the number in front of x, so b in this case is negative 6. C is the constant, so c is 5. I was able to find a, b, and c because the equation equaled 0. If the equation did not equal 0, I would have had to make it equal 0 before finding a, b, and c. Now I'm going to plug those numbers into the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm going to plug things in. We have negative b here, and b is negative 6. So this is going to be negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5 all over 2 times 1. I'm just plugging a, b, and c where a, b, and c are in the formula. Now I'm going to simplify. Negative 6 is just 6, plus or minus the square root. Negative 6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 1 times 5 is 20, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. I'm going to do the square root now. 36 minus 20 is 16. So this is 6 plus or minus the square root of 16 over 2. The square root of 16 is 4. So this is really 6 plus or minus 4 over 2. Notice once I found the square root of 16, the square root sign is no longer there. Plus or minus means I need to do both of these things. I need to do 6 plus 4 divided by 2 and 6 minus 4 divided by 2. So I have 6 plus 4 divided by 2. 6 plus 4 is 10, so that's 10 divided by 2. So one of my answers is x equals 5. For the other answer, I'm going to do the minus. So I have 6 minus 4 divided by 2. 6 minus 4 is 2. So 2 divided by 2. So my other answer is x equals 1. So the two values of x that work in this equation are 5 and 1. Let's look at the next example. So the next example is 6x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Again, it equals 0, so I can find a, b, and c. A is the coefficient of x squared, in this case 6. B is the coefficient of x, in this case 2. And c is the constant, which is 1. I'm going to plug those into the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm going to go ahead and plug things in. So this is going to be negative 2, because it's negative b, plus or minus the square root 2 squared minus 4 times 6 times 1 all over 2 times 6. Okay, I'm going to simplify. So negative 2 would just be negative 2 plus or minus the square root. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 6 times 1 is 24. All over 2 times 6, which is 12. Okay, I'm going to simplify inside the square root. 4 minus 24 is negative 20. So I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 20 all over 12. I cannot have a square root of a negative, so the answer here is no solution, because you're not allowed to have the square root of a negative. So that's how you use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. Please try tonight's homework. Have a wonderful day!